All right.
15 minutes.
So, I'd like to call to order the monthly meeting of the Hannaford Regional Technical School District. Do we have any amendments or adjustments to the draft agenda? Lynn?
I don't know.
No? Okay. All right, we'll move forward. We'll lead off with introduction of board members. Laura, would you like to start?
Sure. Laura Glass, UD3.
Michael Giorgio, Middlebury.
Mark Perrin, UD3.
Oh, Lynn Cole, Superintendent.
Jason LaRock, Workforce Development Board.
Mike McGrath, Addison Northwest.
Harold Mason, Workforce Development Board.
Lynn Schmidt, Education Cooperative Board.
Kelly Mills, Assistant Director of Museums.
Who's taking minutes?
I am.
Kelly is?
Kelly is. Yep.
Thanks,
All
Kelly.
right. Do we have any visitor comments? All right. Do we have any correspondence, Lynn?
Nope.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, which includes the...
I forgot the sheet for this time. Gibson might have it with him when he comes back.
Okay. Well, let's hold on the consent agenda and we'll move into the action agenda, and we'll come back to that when Gibson comes up with that.
We have two sets of bills that we
Yeah.
have to report.
All right. Policy 2.3, financial conditions and activities, which was in your October packet. This is a monitoring report. Lynn?
I can certainly answer those. It's kind of Gibson's wheelhouse, but if there are any questions on that report, I'm happy to talk to you about them. This report is basically to make sure that we have all of our insurances in place, that we have that the people that are accessing our accounts are bonded. 3 is subject facilities and equipment to improper wear and tear, unnecessarily expose the organization or board or staff to the claim of liability. We do not have any liability claims pending. It's about the purchases, which is the board has allowed me the discretion to move $5,000 into different things without board approval. Anything over that would require board approval. Typically what we've done is anything between $5,000 and $15,000, if it's facilities and maintenance issue, that would be in the wheelhouse of the facilities committee. Anything above $15,000 would require full board participation, and those are changes within the budget. The budget is approved by the board. Fail to protect intellectual property information and files from loss or significant damage. I think that we have a fairly secure way of taking care of our records, those kinds of things, and that's what that's pertaining to. In terms of, there is on the back of that a copy certificate of coverage for not only our property insurance but our general liability. I believe, to the best of my knowledge, that this report is complete and is answering to the intent of the board in terms of policy 2.6, asset protection. Questions?
So we skipped, I was intending on talking about policy 2.3, but I didn't want to interrupt you. So
Okay.
that was 2.6,
Which was from last month, right?
which is this month.
Okay, sorry.
So does anyone have any questions for Lynn on policy 2.6, asset protection? All right. Hearing none, we take a motion to accept the monitoring report.
So moved.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion is carried.
I will return to 2.3.
We're going to go 2.3, which is in your packet from October. Would you like to speak to that, Lynn?
Yeah, again, this report is put together, it's giving a projection of whether or not we have the funds to make it through the year. That's the biggest item there. You know, obviously, it's fairly early in the year. We don't anticipate any undue kinds of hardships that might impact the budget. So I believe that we are in pretty good shape in terms of financial conditions and activity. But I am open to questions.
Questions for Lynn? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion at this point.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the policy the monitoring report for policy 2.3, financial conditions and activities. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion is carried.
Okay, there was a financial report with that. I'm not sure if anybody looked at that. It was out of last month's meeting. Okay?
So, next item is a monitoring report for policy 2.5, emergency superintendent succession.
And I think that I read that last month, so I'm not going to. But in short term, I am suggesting to the board that Ms. Mills has the tenacity to step into this position
I was gonna ask about that myself.
should
I
an
was wondering if that
emergency
anybody-
arise.
What do you mean by tenacity?
She's a very nice woman.
This is on film.
Yeah.
So, in the long term, I did in my report talk about the board's need to move forward with whatever plan they have for the long-term replacement of the superintendent. And I believe that that has been, we have an agenda item on tonight's agenda to attend to that. So to the best of I think that we are covered at this time for the emergency succession of the superintendent, but I am open to questions.
All right, hearing none, take a motion to accept the monitoring report. It's been seconded by Mike. Or first, moved by Mike. Is there a second?
Well, I can second this, and then Mike, I'm
So-
confused.
So
Mike and
both
Mike.
Mikes have moved and seconded it. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion's carried. All right, the next item, actually, let's back up to the consent agenda. Now that we have the financial numbers. So the consent agenda will include the meeting minutes from September 14th, 2016, and the monthly accounts payable for both October and November of 2016.
Okay, so I'll read the October 12th expenditures, and Mike will read the ones we did today. So Mike and I met October 12th to review the, out of the general fund, $163,931.47, and out of the revolving account, $7,223.69.
Could you repeat that a little slower, please?
And I will pass this to you.
Okay, beautiful, thank you.
Okay?
And for November, the approval for the general fund was $98,824.56. The revolving account was $8,416.65. And the building and equipment reserve was $10,544 for the month of November.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mike. All right, now that you've heard the numbers, are there any of those components that you'd like to remove for further discussion? All right. Hearing none, the consent agenda has passed. The next item on our action agenda is to act to warn the bylaw changes. Do we have revised bylaws?
I did not bring those,
Okay.
so we could just discuss what those are.
The Budget and Policy Committee took that up last month, took a look at the the existing bylaws, and it was determined that we were just going to change the references to ACSU to ACSD, and also the new, I can't remember what
Gens is called,
yeah.
corresponding.
And, you know, the intent with that is to warn it for our annual meeting with those bylaws taking effect July 1st, 2017. Because the board members from those existing boards will still be active until the new board officially takes over business of the districts, and which would be, you know, their terms would end June 30th of 2017. So the new bylaws would take effect the next day. So what is your pleasure?
I think we should see the actual language before we approve them.
Fair enough? Or?
So, if I'm understanding you correctly, then there would need to be 2 people from UD3 that carry over on this board until July 1st?
July 1st.
Okay, so then there'll be 2 people here, because I know we're both done in March. Ours is at.
Actually, we're not done until June 30th, I think.
I think that we checked into that because we did have a concern, like we were gonna have basically 4 members or 3 members of our board walk off. But I believe that you guys looked into that, and the terms of the UD3 board will expire June 30th, and the terms of the new board, at least this is Middlebury, will start July 1.
That's not actually, it's not
Okay.
actually correct. I believe I think there's 2 different things we're talking about. If your 3-year term is up,
Yes.
Okay.
then yes, your term's up, they'll have to be, unless they extend your term, and actually, that board will still function and still exist
Right.
until the end of the year.
So then they'd have to fill that position.
They'd have to send someone over, and they could, if, in theory, the existing board could appoint someone else. I don't know that actually has to be a board member.
Or the person that's on the
Yes, it does.
It
town
does.
people.
So yeah, then we'd have to have another board member fill your shoes.
It has to be an
So
elected
you're
board
done
member.
in March?
I suppose that they could appoint someone from the new board to
Yeah.
fill out that term. But the key issue here is they have to be elected board members. And the reason is by state law, every school board has to have at least 60% of their membership elected
Right.
from the public.
So whoever's on the ACSD board from my town could then also do the UD3 part that would be allowed.
I believe that is allowable because they have been elected.
Right, yeah, they have, that's fine.
So we will, they're not.
I will have it for next meeting
Okay.
to take
Which will
action.
still give us time to get it warned as part of the.
Yeah, we usually look at our warnings in December
Yeah.
anyway, so we will be looking at budget and warnings in December.
Okay. So do we have a motion to table that?
So move.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor of tabling, us taking action on warning the bylaw changes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion's carried.
So is that Mike McGrath or Laura that second?
Mike
Well,
McGrath.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. The next is to authorize the chair to sign an MOU with the Vermont School Board Association for superintendent search.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Okay, slow down. I'm
Sorry. So it was moved by Mark. So,
Okay, but it-
yeah, I'll just repeat them. So
Okay,
it was
thanks.
moved by Mark, seconded by Laura
Okay, and that was around the MOU?
around the MOU.
The 5:30.
Okay, moved by.
All right. Any further discussion on that topic? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the motion is carried. Next item, to authorize the chair to sign an MOU with the Vermont School Board Association to facilitate a board retreat. Just so you guys understand what this is, the two parts, a search, and we need to do another retreat around, what we're searching for. Ideally, it makes sense to bring in an outside source to help us through that process. And it's not something we handle at a regular board meeting. Thought is we'd be doing that in the month of January, just because at this point, we can move forward with the School Board Association as far as getting all the groundwork in place, getting everything set up with the Agency of Education, so that we can advertise. We're going to get an advertisement out hopefully in early December, if not the end of this month. But then this board retreat would take place in early January to, kind of set our course for the next 3 months as we go through that process. So Bob or the Vermont School Board Association, through the search process, will recommend, how to structure our search committee and all of that. This is more so a second board retreat that they're going to run for us. So, what's your pleasure?
So moved.
It moved by Laura, seconded by Mike Giorgio.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. The next item, approve state equipment grant purchase, which is a statutory requirement. There's a copy of a letter. Actually, I'm going to turn it right over to Lynn. Lynn, would you like to speak to it?
Okay, yeah, I sent out an email. The state appropriates about $27,000 a year to each career center in the state for equipment purchases, and that's to because the equipment that is used within a career center is more expensive generally than what is used in a high school. So they do that every year, and that goes into the big bill that is all the state purchases that they bond about $50,000. It's $50 million a year. So that's part of that. We received a couple different requests from a couple different teachers. I made the decision to go with the diesel program. Part of that decision was based on they really have not had a participation in this program is not. The equipment in that program is very expensive. What we're looking to buy is a 4-post lift that would be able to lift large trucks and buses, and it's all part of our move to incorporate more of the transportation pieces of diesel into that curriculum. So the instructor, Gretchen, put in for that. She looked at them, she researched them up at Vermont Kenworth. She has been in contact with the company and has got full pricing for those, and all of that data is with you. So I'm going to recommend that the board purchase that. It will use up probably the entire amount of the state equipment grant. We will probably have to supplement that somewhat for installation purposes.
Will our new forklift offset that $500, or is our new forklift not large enough to?
To unload it?
Yeah.
No, it should be able to unload it,
Okay.
yeah.
So we won't need that expense.
Correct.
Okay.
So you said there was only one other request from the teacher?
Two others. One was for a spray booth for spray painting that was, I think is minimal cost, probably something we do need. I think that we can take that out of another place. And trying to remember what the third request was. It was for a walk-in cooler to be part of the ag program out at North Campus.
Do we have a place for this, Lynn? Where to go?
They're movable,
Okay.
so they will just be located in the diesel lab out at North Campus, but they're movable. They're not stationary. They're not like an auto lift.
Gotcha. Okay.
There are 4 posts. You go to each corner of the truck, stabilize them, and lift.
Nice.
I think, what is it, the load capacity is 52,000 pounds. That's a big truck.
Our insurance covers this sort of thing?
Yes, we will have it insured, yes.
No, I meant liability.
Yes.
Thinking how that's gonna fall.
I just didn't realize it was
Good thought, though.
movable.
Yeah.
Cool.
They're pretty neat. They probably have had them. We researched how to lift equipment in that lab, and that's where we came up with the crane. And that was, at that time, kind of what they said to use. And they had drive-on lifts, like Betcha has a big drive-on lift that they can drive a 60-passenger bus on. And that's never been something we wanted to do. So these 4 posts are really kind of, because you can move them and get them out of your way and use that space for something else. So I like the concept.
Any additional questions for Lynn on this equipment purchase? All right. Do we have a motion? Moved by Mark, seconded by Laura.
Yes.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve the state equipment purchase grant, or grant purchase. Any discussion on this matter? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. That concludes our action agenda. There's a copy of the superintendent's report in your board packet. Lynn, would you like to speak to it before I turn it over to questions?
Sure, there's 2 reports in there, and I will mention again that in each of, Jason had asked me to kind of reflect on practices as I've moved through my last year of my tenure here. And so the reflection pieces are, I think, are important for you to look at. The 5-year plan, I brought that as an action item, and through budget and policy, I think that the committee had pretty much decided that most of the 5-year plan were administrative issues and not really of board. There's certainly some things that the board, like, one of the pieces in the 5-year plan was for the board to replace the superintendent. And the board is taking action on that. But, things like the hiring of individual staff members and those kinds of things. The board approves a budget. It's the superintendent's responsibility to make the decisions of what goes into that budget and what those needs are. So that's why the 5-year plan didn't come back before you. It is an instrument that we are working off of, and it was in your package, so you do have a copy of it, but the Budget and Policy Committee did not feel they needed to take action on it. And then the reflections for this month was really kind of interesting for me. We have been involved with Castleton. This is our second in-service, was last Friday. Proficiency-based education is something that every district in the state of Vermont is being required to move towards. And so as we were reflecting on that and looking at some of the readings, I kind of bulleted some points that were really meaningful to me as I thought back on my career and mistakes I've made and maybe some progress I've made. So competency-based education is approached to ensure that all children are successful in developing the knowledge and skills they need for life. Competency education has a laser focus on learning that challenges century-old assumptions about schools and schooling. The 5 elements of competency education are that students advance upon mastery, not upon the time clock ran out. Competencies include explicit, measurable, transferable learning objectives that empower students, not meaningless assignments that measure short-term memory, busy work, attendance, and attitude. Assessment is meaningful and a positive learning experience for students, not multiple guess tests. Students receive timely, differentiated support based on their individual learning needs. Not if you missed it today, it is your responsibility to catch up, or you didn't get it, ask a friend. All these are things that I have witnessed and probably have assigned to students. Learning outcomes emphasize competencies that include application and creation of knowledge, along with the development of important skills and dispositions, not a single end-of-the-program assessment of content. The biggest takeaway that I've had so far is we set up an A, B, C, D, F grading in this country right after the Civil War. And it was really designed to separate groups of people. It wasn't designed to get everybody competent. So it was based on the assumption that some had to fail. And probably the biggest gotcha that I had was what happened to the E in that system. And they missed the E because they wanted the F because F stood for failure. I don't think we should be in the public education business of anticipating a certain percentage of our students are going to fail. That should not be what we're doing. Thank you. That's my reflection for tonight.
So you're going to give us an action item next month to change the, we're no longer going to hand out Fs, we're going to start handing out Es?
No, but I think, I'm hoping by spring we're going to be bringing to you that we're going to say, these are the proficiencies that we want to see all students have. And if they have them, and it's our job to make sure they all have them.
That would be excellent.
So that's
Yeah.
that's our mission, and that's what our class is all about.
Excellent.
When,
What time frame do you got that to meet this?
Got here, and then I'll come to you, Sam.
Okay, so when you say not by the passing of time, would you consider within that if students show a faster level of proficiency that they would move
Quicker?
on more
Yes.
quickly? As,
Yeah.
you know, not be so regimented into 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, but move quicker
Right.
through the proficiency system.
Understand, in education, our calendar is based on an agricultural economy. We let them out June, July, and August so that they can go farm. Now we have a school farm that we have trouble finding someone to manage it for June, July, and August. So that's an interesting concept. The whole idea of first grade, second grade, third grade is based upon an industrial age model of an assembly line. And we took the children and we put them on that assembly line at 5 years old, and we stamped them with Inspector 16 at the end of every grade until they were 12, and then we sent them off into the cold gray world with all these stamps. I've had the special education and support services are really the repair mechanisms on that assembly line. I think that it is a different paradigm when you start looking at proficiencies and saying when they've mastered proficiencies, that's when they get their stamp of approval, not at the end of the school year. So that's my reflections. Oh,
So how do you assess it when they go into the next school year and their proficiencies aren't coming around as quick as you want them to come? I mean, there was always that level behind you saying, I'm going to get an F. So it gives you a little push, a little something. And with this sort of teaching, what gives you that push to keep trying to get your proficiencies? Because if you
think
master one, then you go to your next, and you master it.
the thing that the consultants, our instructors talked about was, okay, if you get these zeros or you get a bad grade at the beginning, it takes a whole bunch to recover from that. So that's really what an F is about. What we're wanting to say is we need to do formative assessment regularly and early so that we're not getting students behind. The premise of this is that everybody will get to the same end. They may not all get there at the same time. Kelly, you look like you have something you want to add to
I'm
that.
listening.
Okay.
Thank you.
But when you're saying they all have to be there by June 14th, I can tell you that a certain percentage are going to fail. Because some kids learn differently. Lots of kids learn differently. The majority of kids learn differently than we have historically taught. And so we have to recognize those different learning styles. We have to be able to assess early. We have to intervene earlier. And we have to not keep it a secret what mastery looks like for kids. All of those things we have done in the past. We need to tell them up front, this is what you need to do. Not, there's a quiz on Friday, you didn't know about it, but gotcha. And we all have been there. So.
Any other questions for Lynn on a superintendent's report? Mark?
Regards to proficiencies, how are we going to align our proficiencies with the sending schools?
That's a very good question. And we had actually a faculty meeting yesterday morning. The faculty meeting got way into that. I don't think that we can align. We are going to say, these are the proficiencies the student needs to be showing when they're coming into the Hannaford Career Center. This is what our prerequisites are going to be. They're going to be saying, this set of proficiencies a student will need to be demonstrating when they come in. And we're going to guarantee that those proficiencies are going to be demonstrated by them as they exit. Okay? In terms of their personal learning plans, it's really up to the sending high school to say, okay, we see you can hit this science standard, this literature standard, this math standard by going to the Hannaford Career Center. So, God bless you. I don't know, I really don't envision us keeping students for 2 years for 120 minutes a day for 2 years. And then if they're here, well, they don't even have to be here. If they're registered in our classes for 120 minutes a day for 2 years, or 240 minutes a day for 1 year, at the end of that time frame, we're stamping them with our approval and saying, have a nice day. And we're awarding them with a credit in science or in math or literature. That's our present model. Our new model is going to be, here are our standards, and you need to demonstrate those before we give you the stamp of approval. And those are going to fit in to every high school graduation requirement. I mean, the high schools are not going to move away from the next gen science standards or the Common Core anytime soon. And so we're going to be embedding this. So instead of us giving a science credit, we will be telling the high schools, these are the Common Core elements that they have completed by taking forestry and natural resources. But I think us, and we will do some crosswalk. We've already done some crosswalking, mainly with Virgins, because Virgins has the clearest articulated graduation proficiencies. But we have done some crosswalking with Virgins, and I believe some with Mount A.
Crosswalking means communication?
This is our proficiency. How does that align with your proficiency? Right.
IB is a proficiency-based system too, is that correct, Mark? Laura? All right. Laura?
So am I understanding that so there would no longer be, let's say, diesel 1 and 2, there would just be diesel, and if it takes someone 1 year to reach their proficiency, then they're done the diesel program. Somebody else, it may take them 2 years to reach that proficiency. So the diesel program itself would just have one set of proficiencies, and then however long it takes you to get to those proficiencies is up to the student?
I think that generally speaking, we think that there is this amount of time is required to learn hydraulics, but I don't think every student is going to need that amount of time, and I also don't think that every student will be able to get it in that amount of time. But we do have that lined out in blocks that we're teaching our lessons. It's not just throw out the balls. I mean, we have lessons that are saying, during this block of time, we're going to be teaching hydraulics and electronics and those kinds of things. So that there will always be some time element to this.
So then in theory, you could have somebody that meets their proficiencies in 6 months as opposed to a whole year?
Yes.
In theory, you could come in, test out, and be done.
That's what I'm wondering. Well, no, because there are some people that maybe, let's say Diesel, has had work at home or with a parent or an uncle or whoever and can meet those proficiencies much quicker than someone that's just starting out, let's say.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just got back from a national conference that two students and myself presented at last Saturday. And one of those students who was doing this presentation at the national conference is our farm intern and has done a beautiful job, won't be a completer. She has taken diesel for 1 year. She's taken plant and animal science for a year. She has taken mechanical science for a year. She has taken diesel for a year, and she has taken sustainable agriculture for a year, and she has enhanced her program by being the farm intern. And she has done some co-op, I believe. Okay? So she's the complete package. She's done a lot, and she won't be a completer for us.
Why, what's missing?
Because she hasn't done 240 minutes.
Okay. So it's the time.
It's the time. Yeah. And that's unfair. And some of our best students, Jake had one 2 years ago, Emily, who she was remarkable. I mean, she took courses up in Virginia. She came down and took Jake's class. She took a semester of welding. She didn't even complete the semester. She took the unit in welding. So really flexible. And we're really flexible with those kind of kids to get them as much exposure as we can. She's really successful. She's a RTI?
Yeah, she completed design and illustration because it's a 1-year
Correct.
completion
I
program.
forgot she was in Lisa's class. So she took a sampling, and by the way, I think she mastered a fair amount of the proficiencies if we had them within those courses, but she didn't stay in the course long enough for us to call her, any course, long enough for us to call her a completer.
So you're saying
So
you're
you
trying
got me
to,
confused.
you're trying to get rid of the hours? Like, it wouldn't matter, say they took 1 year auto, but they're proficient,
Correct.
they can be a completer? Because like, I've had Chris Bristol, for instance.
Right.
He's a master ASC certified technician, but he's not a completer because he took
Correct.
the second year auto, that's it.
He took
So
it
he
as a
didn't get
senior.
credit for that, but
Correct.
he's very good. And
Correct.
so yeah, that makes actual sense.
Kelly?
One of the things that we have a faculty member who has been talking about merit badges for a long time. And this is really close to what the Boy Scouts of America have in terms of merit badges. So you can see young people moving through the continuum at different rates. Like you'll have someone ready for the Eagle Scout, in maybe 10th grade, whereas it may take someone right up to the 11th hour just before their 18th birthday to have their Eagle Scouts and all the merit badges that go along with it. And so what we're doing with proficiencies and the timeline that Lynn was describing is really similar to that Boy Scout merit badge continuum that you'll see. So hopefully that makes it a little clearer.
Such.
Using Laura's example of a young man coming in and being really good at diesel, and then what you just said about not being a completer, all these students you talk about are exceptional. They met their proficiencies in it.
Correct.
So why wouldn't they be, because so you're saying you're changing the system? So
Yeah.
someone like that?
Because the system's working against them.
Okay, so what you're saying the current system was against these students?
Yes.
Your future system's gonna be available for students like that?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's going to be flexible, and it's going to be meeting their needs as they're working through their individual pathways towards graduation from their high schools. Laura?
It's kind of a two-part question. One, does technical centers have to meet the same No Child Left Behind Act as regular schools, the laws that fall under that? And second, if they do, does this meet all of those guidelines? Or rules, or whatever you want to call them?
The first question, the answer is no, because we're not an LEA.
Okay.
The second question is yes, because we are not trying to, it's a new law, I forget what it's called, but, yeah. But we are looking at we do not want to lose the rigor that we have spent the last 10 years pushing into our programs. We don't want to lose that rigor. And that rigor is being driven by next-gen science standards, Common Core, and dual enrollment credit. Okay? And we certainly do not want to lower our standards in this process. We want to have those proficiencies set very high. And I'm using standards and proficiency intermixed here, and I hope that's not screwing people up. There are differences in proficiencies and standards, but what we're using as a guide are next-gen science standards. So it's I don't know how a high school can meet the next-gen science standards without utilizing their tech centers. I think it's going to cost them a lot of money if they try.
Mike?
So we're going to see a proposal. I enjoy this discussion, very interesting, but until I see something in front of me, we can sit here all night and talk about this.
Yep.
And the next part of this is, you're not going to be here. We're going to have someone else as a superintendent. So I'd also like to know how, and I don't need this answer now, how the faculty is incorporating this, what their feeling is, and when we have a new superintendent, how that's going to play in as well. Because you can lay all this out and then, let's see what you have, but you're no longer here.
Right.
Okay, so I need to know what this is. I think it all sounded very interesting. I think there's more questions than answers that it brings up to me, and I need to see those.
Right.
So I think it's a very interesting discussion. Let's see what's brought forth. I'd like to review it. I think we have a lot of smart people at the table that can ask questions and then figure out from there where to go.
Yeah. And we'd receive this most likely as a, a method to monitor ends.
Probably,
Because that's where this would fit into policy governance. So.
I also think that as my anticipation in your retreat in January is that you are going to start developing a profile of what your school looks like and what kind of leader you want to fit into that, okay? And I think it would be a big mistake, that's why I'm bringing it up now, not to be putting into your profile that you are going to be a proficiency-based school. And so you don't want to hire someone that's not a proficiency-based leader. That's why you're building that profile.
All right, any other questions for Lynn on his superintendent's report? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, Lynn.
Thank you for allowing me that much time.
You're welcome. We were ahead of schedule.
I very much enjoyed that conversation.
Next item is the Dean of Students report. Ms. Mills, would you like to speak to that?
Both the October and November reports are in the packets. Are there any questions?
How many students did Aaron take out to the national convention?
Took 8.
8?
Yep. 4 in horse evaluation, horse judging, and then 4 in forestry, natural resources.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So they got the silver in the
Bronze.
horse evaluation, and forestry teams got the bronze medals?
Just the opposite, bronze in horse and silver in forestry.
Okay. That's
Excellent.
excellent.
Did you mention soil?
Yeah. At the time I wrote the report, I didn't know what the placings were, but we do have the first place team for the FFA soil judging contest. So we worked really hard for that.
On state level?
Yes, on the state level.
Repeat champions.
So the big deal for that is that competition does not occur at the National FFA Convention. It's a separate competition in Oklahoma. So I think way back when, at the beginning of HCC time, in the 1970s, a team went. But in the meantime, we haven't sent anybody out, even if we did have a winning team. So I don't know why, but.
Because it's in Oklahoma. I thought all the soil in Oklahoma looked exactly the same.
Well, you see, that's the thing that they do at the contest. They have it every year at VTC, and what they do is they literally set it up. So they bring in soil from everywhere else, and they package the pits, as they call them, and it's kind of interesting, so anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Any questions for Kelly?
Yeah, actually, in regards to the parent-teacher conferences, are those mandatory? And if not, how well received are they?
It's interesting. Our instructors are encouraged to reach out somehow, whether it's email or by telephone, particularly to those parents of those students who are struggling. But ideally, to have contact somehow with every parent so that there's that open communication line. So unfortunately, we don't see as many parents as we would if we were in elementary school. And I don't know, it's just, it is what it is, I guess. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess the last thing what kind of percentage do we get?
That's a good question. I don't know what the percentage is.
Till you get parental proficiencies, you're
It's pretty hard to mandate a parent to show up.
Any other questions for Kelly? All right, thank you, Kelly. Next on our agenda is the adult technical education report. Glenn, would you like to, there's a copy in your packet, there's also the previous one in your October packet.
Yeah, I'll highlight the bad news first.
Yeah.
I think a month ago, when I was talking about the CDL program, we were about to start and had 6 participants in the queue. Kind of last minute, 3 of them dropped out for lack of being able to secure all their funding. We started the class at North Campus with 3 students and then had one of those failed the driving record check. And so we were down to 2. At that point, the instructor who was bringing tractor trailers and equipment over from Barry spoke with them and made an arrangement that he would leave them with a minivan and a gas credit card, and they would drive to Barry every day. So that's the way that the CDL has been running. I'm hopeful that the word is starting to get out there that we have a CDL program, that the students who weren't able to get all of their funding will have more time to get funding packages together so that we can try again in the spring. We've got the big hurdle of having a driving range approved is behind us, and so hopefully we'll get another shot at it. More of a success story here, I want to just kind of draw attention to that. Also, a year ago this time, I think I was reporting that we were running a LNA program for the Parent-Child Center. It was phenomenally successful. I think we had 6 students in that program who were not a part of the workforce at all. We had 5 of the 6 complete and pass their LNA exam, and 4 of the 6 are now working as LNAs. One of them at Rutland Regional Medical Center in the oncology ward, which is sort of the most desirable unit of one of the most desirable employers in the area. So we've grown that program again this year, have another cohort from the Parent-Child Center that didn't come to the table with the skill set that the first group did, and their instructor was worried about how to make the opportunity available but support them a little bit better. And so we started out this fall with a personal care attendant 40-hour program that we could use as kind of a screening and preparation program for another daytime LNA program that will start in February. At this point, when we started, 4 of the 6 had the intention of going on to the LNA. At this point, 5 of the 6 have committed, and the 6th one is thinking that maybe she'll throw her hat in the ring. 4 of the 6 are hoping to go on to nursing school, so this was the cohort that wasn't as strong as the one a year ago. So it feels like we've done a really good job with one of the most vulnerable, underserved populations in the county.
Excellent. Excellent.
And I do have a question. The CDL program, that's you're just getting started now. It's an adult program that's not offered to any students, I assume.
That's almost correct, yeah.
Is there age limit?
There is. My understanding is that you can get your learner's permit at 18. You can't get the CDL learner's permit until you're 18.
Okay.
And then you can get the learner's permit and take the exam at 18 and get your CDL. You cannot drive across state lines until you're 21.
And the cost of that program?
The cost is around, I think it's $3,600 for Class B and $5,200 for Class A.
And just one more question. Have you, well, of course the program's not really up and running full blast, but have you thought about checking with some of the businesses around here about getting some people certified, maybe RK Miles, Carreras, Casellas, that kind of thing,
Right.
because they're probably looking for people
Yeah.
to do that.
A lot of people are looking for drivers. One of the challenges that we have kind of in this particular time frame is that a business like Betcha has a huge need for Class B drivers. And what they do is hire introductory workers and have them clean buses or something while they train them themselves. And they go through about a 40-hour training, and then they put them in a bus with one of their drivers and take them down to Rutland, and they can pass the exam. If they pass the exam,
Well, that's right,
they
'cause
get
you
their
don't need a
CDL.
course, you just
They don't need a
vehicle,
course,
yeah, so.
and they can spend however long or short a time they feel they need training them. In order to be an approved driver training program and train the general public for hire, you have to follow a state curriculum that is considerably more hours.
Yeah.
So it would probably be more expensive for somebody to use us. That said, my understanding is that in the next couple of years, that law is going to change, and you're going to have to be a graduate of an approved CDL driver training program. So it's kind of like I would like to have something up and running by the time that law
Yeah.
kicks in, and then there's going to be a very big demand, I would expect.
But that's as long as soon to be.
At one point, I heard October of 2017, but I haven't had that confirmed.
No, that's what I was under understanding that it was due to happen.
Yeah.
Where is the location of where you're gonna be able to do it? I remember you were saying there was a problem before.
The parking lot of the Valley Bible Church in East Middlebury, which was the result of hundreds of hours on Google Earth, and a little bit of brainstorming about who has a parking lot that they don't use Monday through Friday.
Yeah, good. Nice work.
Yeah. Good job.
Excellent.
Excellent, yeah.
Thank you, Len. Any additional questions for Len? Thanks again. Next item on our agenda is the Facilities Committee report. There's a copy of that in your packet. We also have a copy of the BERT fund, which may help. We talk about all the revisions we made to it. We're not asking for approval at this point, but that way you can see what.
Our understanding is that it was approved
Yep.
in June. Is that?
That is correct.
Okay.
Was it June or July? I can't remember what.
We didn't meet in
It was.
July.
It was.
No, you're right, it would have been
yeah.
August.
Yeah, it was tabled in May. It was taken off the table in June and approved. So what this is, we've just cleaned it up a little bit, and updated it. So, does anyone have any questions in regards to the meeting minutes? All right. Give you a second to absorb the. Mark, Mark, Lynn, would you guys like to speak to any of this? It's pretty self-explanatory.
We're open to answering questions if people have any. I did give John the okay to go ahead with, we had bid the air conditioning on this room. And we got our 3 bids, and we actually said we're going to do it. But then I put the kibosh to it because I didn't know if we had this whole plan approved. And then Jason has affirmed with me that we have, so I told John actually yesterday morning to move ahead. So this probably is going to get done before winter if we have a little break in nice weather. I don't think it's a big project. I don't think it takes a long time, but that's going to be really, really nice. gets pretty hot in here, the shoulder seasons, and we also use this quite a bit in the summertime.
Yeah, the meeting minutes reflect, so the June meeting minutes, which were approved in August. State discussions of BERF adjustments requested to authorize Lynn Cole to move forward with project spending for the BERF adjustments as distributed, and recommendations of financial committee, or faculty, or facilities committee. Lynn Cole, not to exceed BERF funds available. It was moved by Mark Barron and seconded by Mike McLaughlin, and it was passed. So, yes, it has been approved.
Thank you, sir.
So, all right, hearing no other questions for Lynn on that. Next and final item on our agenda is the policy 4.1 governing style. Mike, would you like to speak to that? I put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. I think we did a pretty good job. I think one of the things that we might need to do is to extend the superintendent's report timeframe, if that's something that we're gonna, if we want to hear what he has to say, I think we should be willing to listen, but I also think the agenda should reflect that.
Yep.
Other than that, I think we did a pretty good job staying on task.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike, and noted. So, at this point, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.